Okay, sorry about that. If I realized the video did just suddenly stop and we had to click over to the next video, do not be alarmed by this. It turns out that the F11 key, which I often use to select faces in Maya, is being captured by Camtasia, which I didn't realize. I'll have to fix that at some point in between classes, which it's no big deal. Nothing has changed. There hasn't been anything catastrophic, fortunately. Of course, I was able to save the video, which is super critical. So, yeah, I just won't be hitting the F11 key for a while. All right. Now, so what I wanted everybody to have was all of these faces selected here inside the center of the plate. Now, I don't even have faces active right now, so I need to make sure that I'm choosing faces. And let's go ahead and grab this guy and paint these out. It keeps thinking I want to select edges. I just want to thank Maya for that. There we go. Then I want you to extrude these faces. Now this is done by holding down Shift and right mouse and just choose Extrude Face. Now this gives you a very particular widget that'll do all kinds of things. It's like move, rotate, and scale all in one. So watch this. I can move an extrusion. I can click on this ring and I can rotate an extrusion. Or I can click on little scale cubes and I can scale an extrusion. I'm going to tap undo a couple of times. What I want you to do is pull this extrusion down just a little bit. And if you have a really thin plate, you may not be able to pull it down very far. That's okay. And then I want you to just scale it in a little bit, like so. And I'll press F8 so you can see the final shape. Now you'll notice Maya's being really funny about those edges still being selected. Whenever I see this, I just switch over to edges, grab everybody and deselect, and then go back out to object mode, and it goes away. That's some sort of selection bug, and it is a little bit annoying. Okay. Check, check. All right, good. Everybody can hear me and everything's looking okay. Now, which tool was that? If you shift right mouse, that was, you have to make sure you have some faces selected. So specifically, we had all of these faces selected. I'm just going to grab the outer ring just to show you where it is. If you shift right mouse, that's Extrude Face. It's not a tool, actually. It's a command. I did scale these center inwards just a little bit after pulling it down. As a matter of fact, just so that there's no confusion, let me do the whole operation again. So we get all the way back out to here. And I'll just grab these faces. Manually. I'm not sure why. It's making me feel better. It'll give people just a second longer to catch up. So, from here, shift right mouse. Extrude face. Pull down a little bit. Looks like my, just a note. If you ever see this, if your tool has inverted somehow, you probably have something selected that you didn't want to. So I'm going to undo a couple of times, deselect this face, and then perform the operation again. So shift right mouse, extrude face. There we go. Pointing upward. That's exactly what I want. Pull down slightly, click on the scale cube, and scale in just a little bit. So just making that little recessed area where you'd put like a bowl or something. Okay. Last thing. Well, last couple of things, actually. There's a few things I want to do, to be honest. Let's go ahead and select the faces now at the dead center. So this little ring in here, by all means, use paint selection if you want to. And all I want you to do is just pull these up a little bit. So you're just making a little bit more of a domed area toward the center. And if you hit 3, you'll see the result that's giving you. We're almost finished with the top of the plate. The next thing I'm going to do is grab edges. So hold down right mouse button again and choose edges. And just like we did before, now I'm getting a couple of questions. Let me catch up real quick. When I do insert edge loop, it won't allow a loop in the center of the circle. The first loop we did, it will allow one edge but not from the middle. Matthew, I have no idea what that means. I can't follow you, so I have to look at your screen. All right. You know what you've done here, man? You're trying to use insert edge loop, and insert edge loop is looking for a bunch of quads to cut across. That's why we didn't actually use insert edge loop as our first command. The first thing we did is we went over to our polycylinder 1 node, which you can actually see in the attribute editor right now, or you can go to the channel box, and that's fine too. On the right-hand side underneath inputs, you'll see polycylinder 1. Click on that. Take your subdivision caps and set that to 2. There you go. See, now you'll be able to insert an edge loop in between those two outer edges because those are a whole bunch of quads. But it's not going to let you do it with all those triangles in the middle. So now click, move your mouse down a little bit, right in there. There you go. That will work just fine. But try to go on, now undo that real quick. Now try to add one on the inside. Now you're not going to get anywhere, you see, because those are a whole bunch of triangles, and Maya doesn't really know how to make a ring out of that. Now, I think it should. But apparently the programmers don't agree with me. So what I would do is, well, one, I would undo that. I would hit Q, there you go, and grab the select tool. Double-click that guy. Now scale him down. R, there you go. There you go. Make that kind of tight. Maybe right about there. That's actually too tight. I wouldn't even go that far. Maybe somewhere right in there. See, now you can add all of the edges you want. Now I'm going to get you caught up real quick. So what I want you to do is tap the Y key. Now, add an edge right about halfway along that length. So that's fine. Right there is just great. Now, you've already got that edge selected. Click nothing. What I want you to do is hold down Shift and right mouse. Choose Bevel Edge. Now, press F8 to get out to object mode again. We're not seeing any of our nodes that we need to. Hit the Q key to get to your select tool, or, click it manually. Now look at your polybevel 1 input node over on the right-hand side. That has the settings of that bevel. Pull your offset way down. Set it down to maybe 0.1. Oh, I'd go half that. Go 0.05. There you go. So that you got a tight little concentric ring, which is very nice. Now, to make this start looking a little bit more like a dish, switch to edges again. Good job. Now, double-click on the outermost ring of edges of the plate. The outermost, all the way out. Hold down Shift and double-click the edges directly underneath that. Pull all those up a little bit. There you go. Nice. Very nice. Okay, cool. Now, I want you to insert another edge loop on the inside there. I'm just going to let you do it this time. I think you've got this. Oh, you do have this. You're a pro already. Beautiful. Okay. Now, what I'm gonna start telling you less and less and see at what point you get lost. If you start to get too lost, just run your mouse in a circle inside because I can't hear you talking. I want you to make an extrusion of those faces in the middle. So it's 2 rows of faces. You need to switch to faces. That'll be your first hint. Good job. Hit Q. Oh, you're confused. Make sure you grab all of those faces there in the center as well. That won't work. Paint select is faster. Make your brush bigger. Hold down B and middle mouse. There you go. Fantacular. Hit Q. Get out of the paint select tool. Shift right mouse. Extrude face. Straight down. Perfect. Pull that down just a little bit. Awesome. Right about there. Now click the scale cube at the top. Just let go of it. You're fine. Click the little scale cube. And now see that, that won't help you much, but it did open up the scale tool in the center of it. So let go of your mouse. See, now there's a scale tool right there. Scale that down uniformly. Beautiful. All right, now I want you to select all the faces at the very center there. So all those little pie-shaped faces. Use paint select again. Perfect. And just pull those up a little bit. You got it. You're set. I'm going to go ahead and take control back. All right, good job. So now you're pretty much caught up with me. The next thing I'm going to do is grab these two edges around this little indentation, and we're going to make them look fancy by doing another bevel edge. So shift right mouse and do another bevel. I'm going to pull my offset way down in this case, so about 0.33. And you'll see what this does. It just puts some nice creased rings at the center of our plate. And that's where you put like your little soup bowl so it doesn't wiggle around too much. Now, before I do another ready check, I'm going to do one last thing. We're going to take the outermost edge ring here. By the way, loops all connect at the ends. Rings are all parallel to one another, if you're wondering what the difference is. So out here, I'm going to insert another edge loop here at the very outside, like so, and just scale it out uniformly just a little bit, and that just adds a little more extra rounding to the outside of the plate. Now this is all I'm really requiring. At this stage, you can really do anything you want. I mean, if you want to make your plate a little more detailed, you could. For instance, like I could put another edge loop right inside here. And you'll see that that just kind of tightens up my, my wireframe. Or it tightens up the actual shape so you get a nicer crease there. What operation was that? That's just inserting more edge loops. You could do something else. You could say maybe insert an edge loop out here and then immediately bevel it. So we're just doing the same stuff that we've been doing over and over and over. Except maybe add one more segment to that. So now we get this extra ring out here. And then pull this down slightly. Why? It's just adding another little edge. So now we have ridges in our plate. That's all if you want to do that. I'm actually going to undo it. I just wanted to show you that you could. Now, that takes care of the top of the plate. Now, our animation actually is going to cover up most of this work, so a lot of what we've been doing is purely academic. Can you do the last bevel? Sure, I can do the last bevel, which I think was probably this bevel. Because I've done a few. I just grabbed these two rings out here at the little ridge, and I beveled them both. So let me see if I can walk backwards enough to actually see that. Should be able to. I should have plenty of undo. So yeah, I grabbed both of those, and then just did one bevel for both of them, set the offset to 0.33, and then moved on. I inserted an edge loop out here at the far outside, and scaled that out slightly, and that was it. We're done. If you want to make the underside of the plate look a little cooler, there's a bit of a process to that. It's actually really easy, though. I would just grab this edge loop right here, pull it down just a little bit more. I wouldn't even bevel it, really. I mean, really, if I was doing this, I'd grab all these little pie faces. I'd do another extrusion. So once again, that's shift, right mouse. I'd start by scaling it in. Remember, to scale an extrusion, you have to do two things. I'll get to you in just a second, Richard. You have to do two things. You need to click on your scale, any one of the scale cubes, and then you get access to the uniform one in the middle. So I would just scale that in a little bit. I would hit G to repeat the command, scale this one in again, and push it up. Just makes a little concave area at the bottom of the plate. Then if I was trying to be really fancy, and I realize I'm going to have to do this again, I'd grab these two rings and bevel them. Pull the offset down. And there's my plate. Now, let's see. Oh, never mind Maya being slow. Yeah, Maya will do that sometimes. Here's why, or maybe the reason why. Every single operation we've done all the way back to creating this cylinder has stacked up as construction history. Also, this allows me to throw out a quick correction in some of my lingo polishing up a few things because apparently I got a couple of wires crossed in my head, and for that all I can really do is apologize. But the hierarchy view that we talked about in the last class, this is actually the DAG, the directed acyclic graph. And the connections, this is actually the dependency graph. And I knew that, I just spoke it wrong, and for that, again, I apologize, I prostrate myself before you, etc. and so forth. However, our plate right now has a whole bunch of construction history. So when you're satisfied with your plate, and who wants to see me do this little bit on the bottom again? Tell me over in BuzzNet. You want to see me do it one more time? All right. I'm going to undo. Now, all I did was select these faces, and I did an extrusion. How do we extrude? Somebody tell me inside of BuzzNet right now. How much are you failing? There's 1 second of failure, 2 seconds of failure. Shift middle mouse, that's wrong. Shift right click and right, that's also wrong. Shift right click is a good start. Shift right click is still right. Shift right click extrude face. I'll go with Woz. He was all over it. Woz wins. Shift right click and down, actually. But yeah, you get a cookie, Woz. Enjoy your virtual cookie. So you want to do an extrusion. Then click on scale and scale everything down. So you got to click on that scale block, and then that'll give you access to the uniform scale block in the center. Then hit G to do another extrusion. Scale that one as well to about halfway to the center. Then just push it up a little bit. That's it. You could stop here. I mean, this surface of the plate is face down. The camera's never looking at it anyway. So I realize this is all just for, fun. Then we can grab edges once again. Grab this edge, we just double-clicked, hold down Shift and double-click this guy as well, and do one last poly bevel. And I just pulled the offset way down. And now when you hit 3, you get this. And if you're just, if you're one of the fancy types, this would probably be a good time to maybe grab your Insert Edge Loop tool one more time, put one edge loop right up in here, and then slide it up a little bit. And there you go. So, I mean, it looks like it's ready to be thrown across the room. Zach, what does the little selection handle do when you activate the extrusion? Let me see if I make sure I know what you mean. You mean if I do an extrusion like this guy, you mean this little guy floating out here in space? Yeah, this allows you to switch between local, which you see the move tool is currently in local space, or in world space, which can be very handy as well. For instance, if I grab, you see how all these faces are kind of tilted outward a little bit? If I grab a selection of faces here, and this is kind of a random selection, but, and I extrude them all out, if they all go local, you see how they kind of shoot out away from each other? If I tap undo, I can click that little button and switch it over to world space, and now they all go straight down. So that's what that does. Okay, so that is it for the plate. Now I want to do another ready check for people to catch up and finish their plates. I could be crazy, but it looks like you no longer have the option to keep faces together a constant setting. It used to be inside its options box, and now it doesn't seem to be anymore. Do not ask me why. That makes absolutely zero sense to me. I think they're trying to unify the command so that it now works on edges and faces and everything all as one tool. When I smooth shade and try to deselect, I get this odd blue wireframe. Well, we're all kind of getting an odd blue wireframe, to be honest. Make sure you press F8 and then you're back in object mode when you deselect. Okay, now last thing I want you to do is go to Edit, delete by type, and choose history. So it's going to get rid of all that extra construction history. Still there, says Kiev. Well, let's go look at your screen. All right, so what you got, Kevin?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Cool. So yeah, here's what's happening. So it's now smooth shade. I change it to a smooth shade, and I deselect, and I see that blue wireframe.
You've hit 2.
Now,
hit 3.
oh, it's that simple as that.
Uh-huh.
Oh, cool.
Those are your 3 settings. 1 is just going to show you the original base mesh. 2 is going to show you the smooth mesh with the base mesh around it like a cage. And then 3 is going to show you your final smooth. That's really all there is to it.
Simple enough.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
No worries. All right. Now, I was just informed, and I should have known this, but honestly, I haven't really needed access to that in a little while. Let me go ahead and mute Kevin real quick. That if you go into your modeling menu set, and you look under Edit Mesh. So press F3 under Edit Mesh. There's a Keep Faces Together checkbox hidden at the very top. So it's no longer tool dependent as it used to be. It's just kind of a massive setting for everything. So you can go ahead and turn that off if you don't like that. Thank you very much, Woz. Okay, yeah, they're constantly moving things around on me. Okay, so now we've created a plate using polygons, and now we're going to create a plate using NURBS. Here's the cool thing. Creating a plate with NURBS may be actually a whole lot faster. Here's how we're going to do it. Tap space bar. Jump over to front or side view. It does not matter which. I don't care which. Whichever one you want to use is fine with me. I'm going to move up a little bit into space. I can leave the plate here if I just want an idea of my overall thickness for the first plate, or we can just not stress it and scale things up or down as we want to. But here's what we're going to do. Go to Create, and I want you to make a CV curve. So grab the CV curve tool. Now, this is an interesting process. So pay close attention. If you're not done with your polygon plate, don't stress it. You can finish it up later. Just move on and take a look at this. Right now, I want everybody to go to the side or front view. It doesn't really matter which one. And go to Create and choose the CV Curve tool. So once again, that's Create, CV Curve tool. Could I stop you, Raven? All right, so I'm going to hold down X and click right here on the center line. Then I'm going to hold down Shift and click another point straight across from this. Holding down Shift gives me that constraint where it's going straight out. That'll be important to keep the center of my plate flat. Now what I'm going to do here is just click a few points, and please realize it'll probably take you a second to realize or to understand how drawing this curve works. You're going to click point by point, and it'll take you a moment to really get the hang of it. But what I'm drawing is half of a cross section of this plate. So if I were to take a plate, in fact, I'll just take a moment and run over to Photoshop real quick. If I were to take a perfectly good plate and cut it in half, we would end up with something which, if you looked at it edge on, would probably look a little bit like this if I was a better draftsman. So that would be like what the cross section would look like. We are going to make half of that. So basically, this is what we're drawing. Now the easiest way I know to use the CV Curve tool is just to click down a point and drag that point where you want it to be. So I'll make my little ridge here. And then we'll sweep up to the upper lip on the outside of the plate. I'll add a couple of points to get some rounding at the edges. I could even do a little lip out here if I really felt fancy. Now, if you know the way ceramic plates are made, right about here is where they'd have the little ring at the bottom. So we'll create that. Now my last 2 points I have to get kind of fancy with. Click out here. Then hold down Shift and X, and that'll make a point that is directly across from the last one and still snap to the center. Saturn says, mine is snapping to edges. What edges? There shouldn't be any edges for it to snap to. What edges is it snapping to? I would check grid snapping, which is up here at the top. Make sure that's off, and make sure you're not holding down Shift anymore. We only held down Shift for the very first one. When you're happy, you can press Enter. If you're not happy for some reason, you can press Enter anyway, and at any point you can right-click and choose Control Vertex, and there's all those points. So now if you want to, you can move those points around with your Move tool and reshape what your plate will look like. But I don't really want you to do that very much. I do, however, want to do a ready check with people telling me when they have this curve done. Video again. So we're back. Once you have your curve in place, I want you to press F4 to go to the Surfaces menu set. Then under the Surfaces menu, click Revolve. And that will spin out a plate. Now, depending on where your CVs, where your curve vertices were placed, your control vertices, you may end up with a little black circle at the center of your plate. These are common. It's just a little bit of a NURBS graphical error. One way to solve those is to grab the CVs for that curve, not for the plate itself. As a matter of fact, this would be a good time to use those selection masks up at the very top of the view. So we can turn off the ability to select faces, and now all I can select is that curve. If I hold down the right mouse button, I can choose Control Vertices, and if I take this point and move it just an imperceptible amount back, I solve that, and we don't get those little dark spots anymore. So just pull that back just a little bit, and it'll make that go away. It's due to several polygon faces all stacked up right on top of one another. Now, if your plate looks like a bowl or doesn't look like a plate, or in any way you're not satisfied with it, check this out. You can actually grab the CVs of that curve and make any changes you want, and the surface will update, which is one of the cooler things about NURBS. So currently I have a plate, but it's a little too wide, so if I want to make it a little bit smaller, just pull these in a little bit. If I want to turn it into a bowl, I could pull these up, grab this CV, push it in, grab this CV, pull it out, and I have an instant bowl. It's kind of like pottery in that way. Or I could maybe pull this all the way in and rotate them slightly. I'm starting to get more of a pot effect. This is just a lot like pottery now. Pull this in and start to make a vase. But anyway, I'm going to undo and go all the way back to a plate. So I don't really care how you make your plate. Either way, you just have to make a plate, right? Whichever way is happier for you. But this way allows you to see polygon modeling and NURBS modeling as well. Now I'm going to tell you some factoids that I don't necessarily expect you to remember, but they're useful. One is that NURBS are not renderable. Freaky, huh? If you hit render, oh my goodness, I see NURBS. Zach must be lying. No, Zach isn't lying. What's happening is under the hood, Maya is tessellating this NURBS surface into a whole bunch of polygons because it can't actually see a NURBS surface. Now, I did get a couple of questions. How do you edit a point after placement? You can middle click on it while you're drawing the curve. That'll do it. How do we select those curve points on the plate? Well, the ones that I'm playing with are actually not on the plate at all. As a matter of fact, if I wanted to select the ones on the plate, I could, and I could do things to make the plate maybe a little oblong, and that's with Control Vertices. So you just choose Control Vertex, grab those, pull them around, and melt the plate or do fun things with it. What we did instead, though, is up in the status line, I switched off surfaces, so I can't select surfaces anymore. I can only select this curve. And then I can hold down the right mouse button and choose Control Vertices specifically for that curve. And anything I do to the curve happens to the plate due to construction history. Pull that down. Scale these down to thin out a little bit. Now, I do want to point something out. Later on, at some point, we're going to be rendering with Mental Ray. Now, I'm not asking you to turn on Mental Ray. You may not even be able to at this point if you haven't activated the plugin. Just note this, okay? If I select my polygon plate and press 3 so it's nice and smooth, and we do a quick render, notice the polygon plate looks really nice. Also, Mental Ray is generally going to be pretty good with its tessellation, but do you see, it's kind of subtle. I mean, maybe I need to zoom in a little bit, but do you see some of that chunkiness around the edge of the NURBS plate? That's called nickeling. And it actually has to do with Canadian nickels and how they at least used to have faceted sides. They don't anymore. But that's what it's called. As a matter of fact, I remember I was really excited when Cars came out. 3D World, I believe it's 3D World, I'm pretty sure it was, had, what's his face, the main character from that, the red car. For some reason his name is escaping me real quick. Anyway, he was on the cover of 3D World. Yeah, thank you. Lightning McQueen was on the front of 3D World, and there was actually nickeling around his window. You could see it like really, really clearly. What should have been smooth actually looks very faceted, which made me chuckle a little. If you wanted to fix this, you can make a note. You can go to your attribute editor, and you can take a look at the shape node. So revolved surface shape 1, you'll see a tessellation area. Now there's two, I'm not going to go into a big long lecture about tessellation, but there are two types. There's a simple and advanced. We're going to leave simple and just use simple. But watch this. Under simple tessellation options, you can set up highest quality if you want to. We could just leave it at medium, though, and take your U divisions factor and your V divisions factor and increase that. Now, you're not actually going to see the result unless you display render tessellation in the view. And what this does is this shows you the polygons that the rendering engine will use to tessellate this. So if I turn this really, really, really far down, let's see here. Let me find like some really low quality set. Maybe right about here will do. Maybe somewhere in there, and I do a quick render, that nickeling becomes a lot more obvious. You can see all those facets around the side. But if I crank that up, and you see it keeps trying to optimize, which is really, really cool. Then that nickeling becomes less and less apparent. So anyway, that's found under the shape node underneath tessellation. That's a little bit outside our scope. I just thought I'd show it to you as kind of a little added bonus. You don't really have to worry about that. If I see a little bit of nickeling on your plate in the final render, I promise not to come after you with a shovel or anything. It's just one of those things that happens. Okay, so at this point, everybody should have a plate, and we've been going on for about an hour. I realized we had a quick hitch in the video, so we're going to take a quick break. A quick break. This won't even be 10 minutes. Just go grab a drink and come sit back down, and we're going to continue, and I think now we'll go ahead and create our cake. So that'll wrap things up for this video.